Hello, I'm Colin Gallagher, CEO at Onward and Upward, and you're listening to the Association 100 podcast, where each week we interview association leaders from across the country to hear how they're trying new things, taking big risks, and delivering value for their members. We'll explore the realities of what it means to work in and with associations and bring you the insights and inspiration you need to advance your career and make big changes at your association. Let's get started. Welcome to the A100 podcast. I'm your host, Colin Gallagher, and I'm really excited for today's conversation. Joining me today is Tim Ebner, Director of Communications for the CAM Manufacturers Institute. Tim took on this role earlier this year and leads CMI's annual strategic process for all internal and external comms programs. He also develops communication programs to protect and promote the industry's interests to ensure the metal can is recognized as the superior sustainable package. He has a long background in association comms as well as journalism. I've actually known Tim for several years through some volunteering with ASAE, so I'm excited to have him join here today. And he's also an award-winning food and travel writer, which is really cool. He was honored by the International Association of Culinary Professionals Food Writing Awards for his coverage in Edible DC magazine, and he actively contributes to Eater and Resi. He even served on the 2023 James Beard Awards voting body. So such a cool background, and we're really excited to hear his insights today. Tim, thanks so much for joining us on the A100.
Yeah, thank you, Colleen, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a huge fan of your podcast, and it's always great to reconnect with a friend for time to time. And thank you for your volunteering with ASAE.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kick off and let our listeners learn a little bit more about the CAM Manufacturers Institute. Tell us, who are your members and what's your core mission?
Yeah, absolutely. So Can Manufacturers Institute, we are the trade association of the metal can industry. So what that means is we represent both steel food cans as well as aluminum beverage cans. Those as your sparkling waters, your sodas, maybe your adult beverages. But really the role that we play as a trade association is to help tout some of the sustainability profiles and benefits of steel and aluminum cans, as well as the benefits that this industry brings to American manufacturing. It's a huge industry here in the United States. It's part of the circular economy. It is a product that when you recycle it, it goes through the recycle stream and can become a new can in as little as about 60 days. Overall, this is an industry that employs more than 28,000 people in the United States. It's something that I'm passionate about because product sustainability is something I live through my values. It's something that I truly care about. In my past roles in associations, I've also worked in this issue set. Just recently worked at the American Forest and Paper Association, helping to run their communications. So that's another group where there's a ton of work happening in recycling policy right now and sustainability. And I think it's really important as we talk about what our future is going to look like. Obviously, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, a lot of associations have goals to increase or improve their sustainability performance. And Can Manufacturers Institute is just an example of a trade association that has actual targeted goals that we are trying to reach by 2030, by 2040, and by 2050 to improve recycling overall. And so it's fun to be a part of an industry that recognizes a need for a change. And so I'm excited to be a part of this group and really represent those interests and promote the sustainable metal can.
And what a great time to be involved in sustainability too. I know things are always tough to advance on that front, but it's so important to so many people that I'm sure you can all get really passionate behind what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I actually am a little too nerdy about recycling. And for a lot of times, my friends just come to me with questions because I think the everyday consumer is faced with a lot of challenges in their day. I don't have kids yet, but you're managing your families, you're managing just your day-to-day work schedules and all of your competing priorities. I think we all want to be sustainable actors and we all want to increase our environmental awareness. For me, recycling is actually one of those things that you can take an avid interest in and just study up and get to know what your local community guidance is. And once you begin to learn about your recycling system overall, it actually increases that curiosity. And so now here in Washington, D.C., where I live, we just had curbside composting as a program, and that's new for our city. And it's fun to be a part of seeing some of these changes taking place at city levels. And so I do think that this is a space where there's a lot of progress being made, a lot of hope for the future, and really just analyzing our consumption habits, our waste habits, and our recycling habits can be really helpful and beneficial for every person. It's definitely an intentional act. And I think through the busyness of life, sometimes we overlook that important step, but it's definitely something that I am very keen on and know way too much about through the work that I do.
I love that. I always joke I could just ask my dad about recycling rules. We don't live in the same state, but still, he knows everything. And I used to joke his recycle bin looks like he's trying to win some kind of competition. It's perfectly sorted. It's exactly what should be in there. Whether you have tops on or tops off, he knows all the rules. So he would get along well with you.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And really, what we're talking about here is what I just mentioned, the circular economy. And for those who don't know what that term means, it's using materials and products and working within systems that are designed to be reused over time so that they aren't going to a single waste stream. When we talk about the benefits of a steel can or an aluminum can, what's so great is that if you do take that action and you do recycle it and put it in your bin, it actually does get recycled. It's one of the highest, most valuable things you can put in your recycling bin. And it has a consistently high recycling rate as well. One of the things that I tell people is that if you can take some simple actions and just do some simple things like recycling, you actually are taking part and participating in something that's much bigger than yourself. The circular economy is definitely something that a lot of brands, companies are starting to latch onto and understand more. And I think we're starting to see that in practice at a day-to-day human-to-human interaction as well.
That's awesome. Good to hear. Before we nerd out too much over that, I'd love to hear more about your role at CMI and really your association journey and how your experience as a career journalist and comms professional has influenced your work today.
So yes, I've actually been in associations now for almost 15 years, which is incredible to think about because it feels like almost just yesterday. My association journey actually began working for the American Society of Association Executives, so ASAE. I think a lot of listeners here probably are members of ASAE. It's quite literally the Association of Associations. And that's where I had the benefit of meeting you and volunteering with a much bigger group of association professionals. I, coming from a world of journalism, had never truly understood how big this sector is and just how many nonprofit leaders there are within associations. I think the thing that I love most is that this is a very mission-driven, focused career. And in my experience, some of the most rewarding work I've ever done has been in an association capacity. So starting at ASAE, I was the senior editor of their magazine at the time, which was called Associations Now. It now lives on as a website, but it gave me the opportunity to talk to a lot of people day to day at the executive levels in associations who are thinking about longer term strategies for their membership, for their marketing and communications efforts, and for anything from their financials to their technology stack. So it got me so interested in the way in which associations work. And what I loved about ASAE is that I also credit this to one of their biggest leaders, John Graham, who I had the privilege of working under and whose legacy we continue to remember and really credit him as being a huge mentor in my life. He had the words to say, ideas can influence change and inspire others. And I carry that with me to this day. I think the ideas and the force of ideas that we all share as an association community really help to reinforce the work that we all seek to achieve. And so I find that when I'm working now in associations, whether it's at the American Forest and Paper Association, where I spent the last 5 years of my career, to this lead kind of communications marketing role that I'm in now for Can Manufacturers Institute, what I am constantly doing is checking in with my association community. And I am asking questions to those people because those are so many people who are well positioned and in the work that I do day in and day out, and truly more so the experts than I think I can bring to the table in many ways. So, the privilege of being able to work in a volunteer capacity with ASAE to this day, even though I no longer work for them, is such a great opportunity. And I think too, what I'm trying to do in my career almost on a daily basis is connect in with our peer groups, our trade groups that we work alongside on many issues, because the same issue that I'm working on could be the same issue that another organization is seeking to tackle. And so if we can do it with two people rather than one, we'll always be for the better there. So that is definitely something that I have learned over time in my association career. But then also as a journalist, as a media type person, I'm constantly reading the news. I'm constantly a news junkie. And I'm also someone who's like actually writing and reporting and doing all of this great work. But I think it feeds into a capacity that is more about creativity and curiosity. Those two things to me are what almost any journalist has, regardless of what beat or topic they cover. But the ability to pursue a story and write about it in a way where you're reporting on something it really takes some creative capacity, obviously, as a writer, but then really does require the need for curiosity, the need to ask why or how or what. So, my goal as a journalist, I call myself a recovering journalist now because I'm only a freelance, but is really just to try to exercise that same mindset and skill approach that I've had for decades before joining the association community and really try to spark curiosity through great ideas. And so hopefully that's what I'm able to achieve and seek to do in this role that I now find myself in at CAM Manufacturers Institute.
I love that idea of bringing curiosity to what you do. And I think that applies to any role in association, not just comms and marketing, but approaching with a curious mind, it just opens you up to so many possibilities.
I agree. And I think we all have creative pursuits in our own lives. One thing I encourage so many association professionals to do when I hear that they have an interest in singing or painting or maybe it's dance, I always encourage them to pull on that thread a little bit more because there's probably a way in which that interest or that passion can directly feed into a skill set that you also hold as an association professional. They may not seem related, but in my mind, the same motivations that you use to be a good dancer or a good painter or a good writer can very much apply to specific skill sets when it comes to thinking about strategies or maximizing your membership relationships and value. So I really do encourage folks to bring those things closer into focus and look at the intersectionalities of your life, how something maybe on your creative side of your life, maybe as a hobby, could actually very well feed into your professional life and career.
I think that fits into this whole era of trying to, I don't know, work-life balance is the right word because there's never really balance. It's just trying to do it all. But trying to be better and trying for the next generation to have better experiences and to think about how your passions can fuel what you're doing at work too. So you feel just as excited. I like that way of thinking.
It's also something that I think when you talk about bringing your whole self to a job, only in associations have I really found that I am capable of doing this. In many careers, you go in and you say, hey, I am writing a book or I am working for this freelancer as a photographer. And they'll tell you, sorry, this does not compute with the
Yep.
work that we do and you must stop doing this. Every association I have gone to has been open minded and welcoming of the skills that I bring to the table. They also recognize that the work that I do in media relations is mutually reinforcing and beneficial if I practice the work of being a journalist. So I really truly credit associations to welcoming whole selves. I encourage people to bring their whole selves to their jobs. I know there can be times where it feels like we all are stretched thin on time, but I do find that balance in that the things that I feel passionate about are also the things that I work on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that's awesome. The other thing with associations, I feel like that works well in that line of bringing your passions is they're usually open to letting you try things. Especially, I've worked at a lot of small staff associations, and so when blogging was still new, I asked, "Can I start a blog?" And it was like, run with it. And then it was, can I start a podcast? And okay, if you can figure out how to edit it and post it, like go give it a shot. So it was same thing. It was these things I was super passionate about. I used to have a running blog when that was new and fun and everyone was doing it. And I got to bring that into work and then create a blog for our association. So I think that that's something that, like you said, you don't get in maybe corporate America so much.
Yes.
And then just the community. I've been to ASAE annual for years now, and this year was our 3rd year exhibiting, and I came away from it with this realization that after years of being on the other side, working in association where we had the exhibit floor, and I remember having to like moderate fights between exhibitors, and they were mad at this exhibitor for that. And I was just noticing this year how much camaraderie there was, even among those of us on the vendor side of things, and how, we had all these awesome conversations about what we're hearing, what we're seeing, and how can we help you, and things like that. And I don't know that you get that outside of the association community as much as you do in it. It's a special place.
I totally agree. And it's so funny. My passion is obviously eating very good food and always being at a table with a lot of people. And almost every association professional I have met is very well sourced in their restaurant recommendations and eats all over the place and has no dietary restrictions. I find they have very good taste too.
But that's actually pretty true. I've got a lot of restaurant recommendations from association folks.
Okay, good. I'm going to ask for them later.
Super funny. Okay, let's get back to CMI a little bit here and some of the really amazing initiatives you all have underway. Can you talk to me more about this 2 million cans recycling contest and how this grassroots effort really engages communities?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one that I am super excited about because we just kicked off this contest last month. It is called the 2 Million Cans Recycling Contest. We run it with our memberships and in partnership with them. I also have to say this just won an ASAE Power of Associations Award in the gold category, so I'm feeling very proud about that. One thing that's really cool about this program is it engages students at the second and third grade levels on teaching them about our US recycling system. And we worked in partnership with another group called Recycling is Like Magic. They're a nonprofit. They also have a children's book that teaches kids about the benefits of recycling, why aluminum cans are really important to recycle, and what you can do to be an environmental steward for the future. So it's cute because this whole contest started as a book called The Girl Who Recycled a Million Cans. And what I love about it is last year we piloted this saying, hey, this is a children's book. What if we tried to do this in real life? So we literally took, an author's words and turned them into action through our membership's great partnership and support. And last year in the school year, with just about a dozen schools across the country, we were able to collect 1.3 million aluminum beverage cans for recycling. And it's just incredible because if kids can model and show us what we can do in terms of environmental stewardship and recycling, why can't parents also get involved and take notice? We find that children can sometimes be the best teachers. And so this is really the ultimate goal of this contest and this challenge. So this year we've upped the goal to 2 million cans. Our students are now at 18 schools around many states in the United States. What we hope as an outcome of this program for this year is that we increase overall the number of cans that get collected, but really spark the curiosity in children who I frequently live in communities where there is a lack of access to curbside recycling or a lack of access even to drop off recycling. And so by creating and working with these schools, what we essentially do is bring collection containers to their school site locations and working directly with some scrap yards locally. Those cans that get collected at the school that the kids bring in from their homes to recycle, those go to the local scrap yard and receive a payout value because aluminum is a scrap commodity. And the money that gets recycled from those cans then goes back to the schools and can be reinvested back into school infrastructure. And for me, the full circle moment, and this is again the circular economy, which is so cool, is last year we had a school down in Texas that needed some new bleachers for their gymnasium. And they basically raised enough money through the collection of the aluminum beverage cans to pay for a new set of aluminum seats for their gymnasium.
Oh my
And
God.
so a perfect example of like circular economy in action, like those cans going in could potentially be the aluminum bleachers that get put into their school long term. So just awesome opportunity. I also think that it's a great place to position us because people forget that there's a lot of value in used aluminum beverage cans. And so you can go around your community, collect cans, drop them off at a scrapyard and get money for it. Like that is something I did as a kid with my dad. And I feel like it's something that I hope other kids will carry forward with them and realize and recognize as they become adults in the future.
Yeah. So I grew up in New York, so there's 5-cent
Yes.
refundable, and we would actually our sports teams would have can drives, and
Yeah.
you'd put the boxes out at all around the neighborhood that before, and then go through and collect the bags and the boxes from all your neighbors, and yeah, it's funny, but what a cool initiative! I love seeing you get the kids involved and engaged, and just engaging a community and driving excitement. That's amazing.
One of the funny things too about this campaign, and this is a learning for us this year, is obviously kids are so connected through digital platforms and
Yes.
social media, for better or worse. But the parents are as well, and the teachers are too. And this is like a huge driver of the campaign and contest overall, is that we get so many great photos from on the ground, from teachers, from schools. Right now, we're talking and it's Halloween today and the kids are dressed up in recycling themed gear and one came as a recycling bin for Halloween. So it's really fun and it's a creative kind of grassroots effort where the kids really get involved and make it the great success that it always is.
That's so amazing. Very cool. I can't wait to hear how the rest of the contest goes. And let's hear about every can counts. What's going on that front?
Yeah, this is another example, I think, of like where our industry brings creative ideas to the table when it comes to helping improve the US recycling stream. We are a chapter of a much bigger group called Every Can Counts. So here in the United States, Can Manufacturers Institute runs the countrywide chapter for this group. Many other chapters are based in Europe, some are in the Middle East, some are in South America. But essentially, what we do as one organization is we seek to tackle the issue of away from home recycling. So, when you're at like a concert or when you're at a huge festival or a parade, you obviously are using our product, aluminum beverage cans, because it's, again, one of those circular recyclable things that you can be using. And a lot of stadiums have actually gone only to aluminum beverage cans, which is a new trend overall when you go to concerts or when you go to festivals. But we really work to develop systems for recycling that can hopefully get those containers back into the recycling stream rather than going to, say, a landfill. Every Can Counts is a program that's super creative. It's designed to get people excited about the simple act of recycling communally. And we have many examples of where we do these partnerships throughout the year. Currently, right now, we're working with several communities that are up and down the Mississippi River who are small towns, like rural towns that have limited to no access to recycling, whether it's curbside or drop off. And we're helping them in a program that's called Cans for Cash. You just mentioned in New York, basically a system where we'll set up some container sites across these small cities, and then they'll get money for every can that they are able to recycle locally. And we have a whole app to track their performance and how many cans they collected as a city. Some of that money also goes back to the local city so they can invest in their own communities, maybe building recycling containers in parks and different public spaces. But it's a great opportunity for us to, again, champion what the power of this whole partnership can do. And another great example, and I love this one because it ties in my love for food, is Mardi Gras down in New Orleans every year. We actually work with a local crew and we have a program called Recycle That, which is basically a parade crew that goes around after all of the various folks go down the parade route to collect cans. Everyone is obviously at the march or the parade drinking their favorite beverage, whether it's alcoholic or not alcoholic. And we have these great bright green backpacks and containers where we collect these cans, we recycle them, and then all of the cans that are collected, a portion of the funds from the recycled scrap material go and get reinvested back into local New Orleans nonprofits. So Every Can Counts is really about creating excitement and buzz and energy around the process of recycling away from home, and really to build a sense of community that we can all contribute and actively be a part of something through the process of recycling.
That's awesome. We talked a bit about the power of associations as we were kicking things off, and I just feel like these two initiatives, man, the impact, that's just crazy. It's very cool, and what an amazing thing to be a part of.
Yeah, we obviously do a lot of work in policy. We do a lot of really important work across states and federally when it comes to recycling policies and improving access to recycling, investment in recycling infrastructure, and increasing the aluminum beverage can recycling rate overall. But I think what we can do at a person-to-person level in very local ways is sparking action and change and excitement so that people have creative outlets where they can pursue activities like this. It's not just about putting a can in the bin. That's a very simple act. We want people to get a high five or get celebrated for their action in taking part in recycling. And so when we go to concerts or when we go to Mardi Gras or when we go to these large sporting events and pick up cans and get people involved in that process, we find that there's just so much bigger effort and the partnerships really just truly add up over time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So pretty much all of my conversations today end up coming back to AI. But when I first saw
Yes.
Can Manufacturers Institute, I was like, maybe not. And then there I read through your email about the stuff you're doing, and I see
Oh, we have
AI-driven
a
robots to do
yes.
some aluminum can
Yes.
recovery. It
It's awesome. Yes, AI is everywhere. I
really
literally
is.
feel like I could throw a rock and hit a robot or an AI something. And it's funny because I like to joke. I'm a writer. I've always been a writer. I think that's a huge through line in my career as either a communications and marketing professional or a journalist. And I'm someone who actually enjoys the writing process. And when I see things like ChatGPT, I'm like, okay, great. But like the writing quality, I can do better. Like, sorry, robots, like I can do this better. But so I think this is a great example of where this isn't a large like language model that's ChatGPT per se. This is optical sortation. And we use AI in a really cool way after someone would recycle, say, an aluminum can. So usually when you put your recycle bin out for collection, what happens next is a truck comes down your street and picks it up. From there, a lot of people don't know what happens to your recycling. And that's where we get to tell a little bit of a story here. And we can tell you a little bit of how technology is helping improve recycling sortation. So essentially, after that truck leaves your house and takes the recycling away, it goes to something called a material recovery facility. And really what they're trying to do at that, what we call a MRF, material recovery facility, is separate out all of the commingled things, whether that's paper, plastic, aluminum cans, steel cans, you name it. There's a lot of different sortation tools used. Magnets help get out the steel cans because they're attracted to magnets. But with aluminum cans, we use optical sorters, things called eddy currents, which help separate it out from things like plastics or paper. And now what's so cool is we've introduced this latest technology. And this is a partnership that we were able to achieve with two of our members, Crown and Ardov. They're two of the largest can manufacturers in the world. And what's so cool about this program is we are working at these MRF levels where all of your recyclables go to essentially use optical sorting robots that can identify what a metal can looks like and put it out of a commingled stream of other outthrows. So a lot of times when you look at a recycling stream, people put in a lot of things that just never end up get recycled. Things like plastic bags, which are a huge contaminant. There's also just very random things people think that they will get recycled, but they actually don't. It's called wish cycling. So on that sort of last chance recovery line of the recycling facility, you'll see all that kind of trash that shouldn't be recycled getting out of the MRF to go to a landfill. Sometimes our prized materials, the aluminum beverage cans that are worth a ton of value, can get stuck or trapped or just missorted in that last chance line. So these robots are literally not replacing like anyone's job, not like a human or anyone. They're literally just one more level of attention we can put on the MRF facility so that we get any metal cans out of that last chance recovery system so that no cans would otherwise then go to a landfill. And it's so cool because the robot is literally this giant arm and it uses an optical kind of technology to find a can, identify a can, pick it up through an air suction and put it into a bin for recycling properly. And I just led a media tour for a bunch of tech journalists through one of these facilities. They had no idea how this all worked. And like just showing them was so cool, but I get excited about it because it's a great example of technology, artificial intelligence coming to the table to solve a challenge that we currently face. And I think the outcomes of this so far with just one facility in Chicago where we've installed this, we've already recovered more than 1 million cans for recycling, and that isn't even within 1 year. There's an enormous amount of greenhouse gas savings through recycling used beverage cans, an enormous amount of obviously recycled content that goes back into cans. But it really hits on, I think, the 3 key pillars of sustainability, which are A, it has to have obviously environmental benefits for what we're trying to achieve, but B, it should also hopefully be an economic self-sustaining model, and C, it should serve a greater social purpose. And the robots that are actually collecting these cans, they revenue share with us about so 50% of what they collect from the used beverage can being recycled comes back to us in the form of revenue, which then we can invest in more robots to do this sort of picking and sortation at the MRF level. So it's just a great example of something where we're going to continue to invest. We're going to continue to use technology in ways to help improve the recycling stream. And it's really showing how our industry, the metal can industry, is leading by example.
Technology is amazing. The things you can
It's
do.
wild.
That's really
It's
cool.
really like, we just worked with a couple reporters to get them out to a facility. So if you want to check this out online, and maybe we can link to it in the show notes,
Yeah.
but Axios just did a feature on it. We have a Wired reporter who came into the facility to take a look at it up close. So we're getting people interested in the recycling process. And I think that is a major shift from where we were even a decade ago. If you had asked me a decade ago, what happens to your recycling after it goes in the bin? I would have said, I have no clue. And it's only through this work that I do now that I'm beginning to understand it. And I think that's what we're trying to help bring to Americans across the country as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Coming full circle and back to your association journey, you were recently honored with the 2025 Association Trailblazer by Association Trends. So congrats on that. That's really cool and very well deserving. I'd love to hear what that meant for you and any big insights from your journey that would be helpful for today's association leaders.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really, truly was totally surprised by this achievement. Awesome. I don't know why they picked me, but I will say I've had many mentors in my career. who have been so impactful in my journey and in my development as a leader in the association community. I have to credit John Graham and the staff at ASAE for giving me the fundamentals into what it's like to both run an association, but also provide leading best in class information from the association community. I also, like my colleagues at the American Forest and Paper Association, who I continue to work so closely with on so many key policy issues, they have been an incredible support throughout my career under the leadership of Heidi Brock, who actually is the board chair of ASAE now and is so committed to furthering the association community as well. And to this day, with the Can Manufacturers Institute, my colleagues there, we are a small staff of only 8 people. We seem a lot bigger from the outside world. And this is my first time being in a small staff association. And I think what I'm learning right now and what this honor means to me is that associations do things much beyond their capabilities. We can, in many ways, exceed expectations almost every single day. Our members clearly want the most from us and they demand that. That's why they're members. But what really fundamentally we need as associations to succeed is the power of connections through people, through networks, through portals like this podcast connecting so many people. I think we thrive through connection, and our ability to do more and maximize our value comes through obviously small but mighty forces, but really through key partnerships and bringing people together to work on issue sets, to work on challenges, to work on so many issues that we now face in our world. And these are things that I think only associations can do. So to be recognized as a trailblazer is incredible. I am definitely someone who thinks that I will continue to try to work at my leadership. I don't think any of these awards actually mean you've done it or good job, but I am very much focused on how do I improve and continue to maximize my association leadership through this community that has given so much to me. And that is my biggest gratitude and privilege, is to be a part of this diverse group of people who have given me so much. Now I feel like I need to pay it back and give it forward. So that's my next goal as an association professional.
I love that. And I think you just so well summed up associations and what they do and the impact they can have. One other big kind of theme through our discussion today has been creativity. So for associations looking to expand their impact, how can they bring creativity to connect diverse stakeholders to keep their mission fresh? What do you recommend?
I currently have the privilege of working at an organization where, again, we're a staff of 8. So nearly horizontal leadership. Robert Budway, who is our president and leader, he is someone who is very good at asking questions to all staff members. He may know the answer to a tough issue set, but he is curious and genuinely interested in hearing how you'll respond to a question or a challenge that we face day to day in our jobs. I think as a journalist, I always try to lead with asking very smart questions and being curious enough to say why or say, how are we doing this? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? Probably the most important. But I do think that having a creative mind means also asking those questions and listening to everyone at the table in your organization. So many times I think there's power dynamics or there's more vertical leadership and structures created inside of associations. And if you find ways where you can break that apart and get everyone to a table to address a simple question, it could end up giving your mission a refresh. It could end up changing your membership structure. It could end up dramatically diversifying your revenue streams. So I really look to all of my colleagues as leaders. I ask them questions day in and day out. Sometimes they may think that I'm being like a journalist, a little bit like too direct and too pushy. But I do think that asking questions and being capable of cheering everyone out and really being a listener first and foremost is how we get to more creative solutions overall. We have to work together. And I think being a creative person means you're naturally curious. So using that and maximizing your ability to ask questions is really essential in the day-to-day role that I play.
Yeah, such good advice. This has been so fun, such a good conversation. Before we let you go, though, we like to wrap up all of our podcasts with our just for fun questions so our listeners get to know you a little bit. So first one's easy. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, great question. I actually am a product of the Washington, D.C. area. So I grew up in Wheaton, Maryland, which is just outside of the Beltway in the Maryland suburbs. And I think people are always like, why are you a food writer? This place is incredibly food rich. It's an incredible immigrant owned and run restaurant community. Almost every restaurant in Wheaton is independently owned and operated by a mom and pop business, and they are from many parts across the world. So I think I was really privileged to grow up in a community where I got to try a lot of amazing cuisine from around the world, but also just in community with so many amazing chefs and people who own and ran restaurants. So I think that's where maybe this food writing whole thing started. And I'm probably also the travel too, because once you start eating around the world, you also just want to travel around the world to eat those things. So those two things go hand in my opinion.
Absolutely. Awesome. What's your Starbucks order or go-to morning drink routine if you're not a Starbucks fan?
I'm a simple guy. I really truly do the largest coffee on the menu. So a venti, dark roast, and a little bit of oat milk. No sugar. Can't do dairy anymore because I've got to watch my health. But I'm very utilitarian when it comes to Starbucks.
Nice. All right. So if you won the lottery tomorrow, would you still work?
This is a very good question. I think yes. I think I find joy in this work because it allows me to be a writer. And I don't think I'll ever stop writing in my life. If I'm not in associations in a couple of years from now, I'll still be writing. Hopefully books is my goal long term. But I do think winning the lottery could give me some financial security to be that writer. Most people that I encounter who are journalists or are pursuing book projects, you really are up against that resource constraint. So maybe the lottery situation could help me and improve the situation. But also being young, hungry, and not having enough money also makes you really accepted to take on challenges and risks. So that's where I feel like a lot of my writing career has started from and really is going to this day.
There we go. Very cool. What's the last show that you binge watched?
This is easy. My wife and I are huge reality TV fans, so we watch everything in reality world, all that Housewives, everything. But we just finished Love Is Blind, Washington D.C., which is obviously where we live. We now live on Capitol Hill. But yeah, we are happily not in the dating pool, but love to watch it on TV.
That's great. What's a food you can't live without?
Oh my goodness. Probably going to say, just because it's arriving to my house in the next 30 minutes, is pizza. Pizza is the perfect food. I can't think of a more poetic, maybe pasta and pizza. Anything Italian, it pretty much is food wise. But I do have a bunch of pizza orders coming in because, as we mentioned, it's Halloween and I am not cooking. And I've got a bunch of kids coming over later. So we're feeding everybody pizzas tonight.
Nice. Pizza's the way to go. I can always eat pizza, so I'm with you on that one.
I think it brings everyone together.
Right?
Unless maybe you're lactose intolerant. I don't know.
All right. Last one. What's your bucket list travel destination?
Right now, we are trying to get ourselves to a trip out to Fiji, which is very far away. Yeah, originally, my wife and I got married at the start of the pandemic. We actually our wedding was supposed to be March 20th, 2020, which obviously that did not happen. The whole world shut down. All of our honeymoon plans got rearranged or rebooked or credited by flights. So this is actually a flight voucher that we have been meaning to use for the last 4 years. And so we will be taking that trip to Fiji probably before the end of the year or early next year to finally we've done other like mini moon, honeymoon. We've done multiple honeymoons because we just feel like we've earned that
absolutely.
after the pandemic. But yes, we're definitely going to go to Fiji soon. And that's going to be fun because I love to snorkel and I love to be in the water.
Oh, that's going to be such an amazing trip. That's so cool. Awesome. Tim, just again, really appreciate your insights. This has been a fascinating conversation and we enjoyed having you on the A100 today.
Oh, thank you so much, Colleen. I love talking to you and I can't wait to see you again soon.
That's a wrap for today's episode. The Association 100 podcast is a production of Onward and Upward Marketing and Communications, where our mission is to make associations and nonprofits the go-to source in their industries through earned media and thought leadership. This podcast is an extension of the A100 newsletter, a bi-monthly collection of best practices, top trends, helpful ideas, and smart strategies delivered straight to your inbox. Have you undertaken a big change at your association, or do you have some words of wisdom for the trenches of association life? We want to hear from you, and so do our listeners. Drop us a note at info@onwardupward.com. That's info@onwrdupwrd.com. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share with your friends and colleagues. We're available anywhere podcasts are found. Come back next week for more association inspiration and insights. Thanks for tuning in.